we are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
That we must see. Now is the time, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Welcome to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming, I always say, well, I want to say steaming, a streaming platform heard round the world and beyond. I mean, we really go into outer space with the rocket ships. Anyway, today we have our guest is Robin Brown from the what's it, Collective Citizens Organized Against Lead. And Jana, my co-host, Jana Larson, take over.
All right, Malcolm. My friend, Robin Brown, is truly a dynamo with an unending passion, the kind that mothers have when they have to protect their children. She will tell more about this, I'm sure. I met her when I was on the coordinating committee for the Northeast Ohio chapter of the Poor People's Campaign. Her organization, Collective Citizens Organized Against Lead, is a community-based nonprofit organization dedicated to fighting against childhood lead poisoning. They partner with other nonprofits, families, and volunteers who want healthy environments for all people, regardless of their background. Their mission is to educate people on the dangers of lead poisoning and to provide resources to those affected by it and to make a real difference in their communities. Their catchy slogan is "Kids Run Better Unleaded." Very cute and good. Welcome, Robin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to share wisdom with the two of you and beyond. Thank you.
How did you get involved with this?
So tell how you got started. It wasn't like you woke up one day and said, gee, I must do this. Tell the story of how you got started.
Telling this story may take me totally out of my demeanor because it's so emotional even today, 20 years later. It still is affecting me when I think about it. But my story started from a phone call in September of 1999. Around 3 o'clock, I was heading to pick my daughter up from daycare, and I received a phone call from our private physician that I needed to immediately get her to the hospital so that she could be admitted. And as a mom, I'm sitting there saying, what's wrong? I took her to daycare. I haven't heard anything after. I didn't receive any calls. What's going on that's happening? He said her lead level is extremely high, and we're going to need you to get her to the hospital as soon as possible. Pick her up, don't stop. To hear those words without having no knowledge about the subject is like, okay, so I'm going to do what you asked me to do. And that was the start of our journey, where we went to the emergency room, and it took over a 6-hour process to even get her in the back area to get discharged. And so I'm sitting there all this time saying, if it's an urgency enough that I cannot pick up my other child or I cannot do anything, why is it taking so long for this admit? And I found out that her level at a 70 micrograms per deciliter was equivalent to a severe seizure, coma, or death level. So while we're sitting for those 6 hours, those things could have occurred before she started the therapy treatment, which is called chelation. that would remove the lead outside of her body to lower it down out of her bloodstream. A lot of people,
How frightening.
man, it was beyond frightening because again, just not knowing about the subject and not having internet at the time and accessibility
Right.
to Google or any type of research that I
Yeah.
could have plugged and found out
Right.
myself. So I'm waiting and looking upon trusted spaces to provide me the service. And it was just a bad experience for the 5 days we had to stay there for the therapy chelation. It takes 5 days to administer the medication that will pull out the metals in the body, and it's replaced by an IV that is given to the child. And for 5 days, the minerals are put back in the body that the chelation is taken out.
So how long of excuse me,
Go
how
ahead, I'm
long,
sorry.
how long of a period do you have when the child has lead poisoning or anybody has a lead poisoning? How long do you have to get it out before it causes irreparable damage?
Lead poisoning causes replicable damage once it enters the body first. Secondly, there's various levels of lead that a person could have. My daughter was considered a severe level. Let me back up a little bit. Lead is measured in the body by blood draws. That's the only way to know if a person has lead in their body. You have to have a test that would draw the blood from your arm, which is called capillary testing. And it's the only way to know if lead is in a child's body, for one. So through this testing, the results of the lead is measured by micrograms per deciliter. And the number is what's so important. It's not a positive or a negative like we normally get with test results. It's the number that is the guideline to say if a child have lead in their body or not. So today, the Center of Disease Control recognized the lowest level that they want to have in a child's body is 3.5. But they will tell you no level is safe in a child's body. So we're now accepting 3.5 as the lowest level that most labs can truly read and get the accurate result is at 3.5. My daughter was at a 70.
Wow. Well, number one, I hope she's okay now. And
I'll let you know that in our segment. She really is. But it took a long haul. It wasn't an easy journey. Even from our hospital stay, our private physician never showed up. So here we are, a family in a hospital setting.
yeah.
And never spoke to a doctor.
Phew.
Never been told why we're being treated, what is the reason, what are some options, what is going on in the first place. So
Wow.
again, how were we able to advocate, and me as a parent, advocate for my daughter's
What
space?
to do? Today, after so many years, do they do regular testing for lead in a child or a person system? Because I don't remember. I have two boys, 27, 28. I don't remember them ever doing testing for lead, or I don't remember with me whether they ever did any testing for lead.
It is a federal regulated rule that all kids on Medicaid should be tested, which as a parent, I find as a flaw, and many other parents that we work with, we feel all kids should be tested. And let me re-quote myself. All kids that are on Medicaid and live in a high zip code area is qualified to receive testing. The thing with that is the Medicaid space, we're not achieving that goal, even though it's written as a federal law.
Mhm.
And when we go to the high zip code areas, if that is not a regular documented thing given to physicians, they're not going to be updated to what those zip codes are.
What is
To
a high zip code area?
That is considered the areas with a lot of lead poisoning within that zip code, in that community. So for example, in Cleveland, all our zip codes are considered high.
Wow.
Now,
In the
does that
city
have
of
anything to do with,
Yes,
does
yes.
that have anything to do with the economic group of the people that have the lead poisoning? Because as far as I know, I think, which is most of the time publicized, is that lead poisoning most of the time is caused by children eating paint chips. You know,
That's
because that had the old time that paint had lead in. I think it's illegal now to have lead, but
it has lead paint was banned in 1978. Is when the lead paint was banned from being used. And so any home that was built before 1978 have a risk of having old lead paint in it. And when your paint start chipping and peeling, that's when the hazard is created. If your home substrate walls are intact and nowhere in your home, no matter if it's lead on that wall or surface or not, it won't be exposed. It's only become a hazard when it starts deteriorating.
Right. And now I also somehow have in my mind that there's also lead contained in water in a lot of the.
It is because of the lead service lines, which are the pipes that connect the homes from the actual street district piping. That particular pipe has never been the responsibility of like our water system department for replacement. That was always been placed on the homeowner. So if we as homeowners aren't aware that this is a problem, we would never think about changing this lead service line. So right now, the EPA, let me back up, Biden administration with the infrastructure dollars that was given, part of that infrastructure bill is to support for communities around the nation to start getting their lead service lines replaced. So right now there is a revision to the lead and copper rule that exists now. There's a revision that is being promoted by the federal EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, that is changing the structure of trying to get these lead service lines completed within a 10-year time frame around the nation.
Now, how is this manifested? I mean, let's say in a child, how can you tell that they're suffering without taking the blood, without taking a test? Is there symptoms that they exhibit?
The symptoms mimic other problems. So unless a person get their child tested for lead, you will never know, because some of the symptoms are stomach aches, headaches, loss of appetite. Also, some of the more severe symptoms are attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Also, we're finding that your irritabilities, which fall into your mental illness space, your irritability, your aggression, your anxiety. Also, we're finding that schizophrenic is a symptom of mental illness, manic depression. And a lot of folks are being diagnosed with those last two symptoms a lot right now.
Yeah.
And so one thing people, I think, have a myth with lead. One is not just by eating paint chips or anything of that. It's also by inhaling the dust that we cannot see by the naked eye. And so when a child will rub their hand on a wall that's deteriorated, say they're just standing there doing this, it's creating a dust we can't see, but they're breathing it in and it's harming. It's a dust that would get on their hands, their clothing, and just by patting and, putting their hands in their mouth, we will be able to poison our children. But outside our homes is a big space for lead poisoning. Our environment with our contaminated soil from the leaded gas we used to have, which wasn't banned until 1986. The lead was banned from there. So we have our environment, our house, our soil, our home, but then we have a lot of consumer products that are out now. And sad to say, we have a lot of baby food that is out now containing lead. So we found it in our foods. We're finding it in our consumer product. Just recently, our Stanley water cups that a lot of people like to buy actually have lead in the lining, but also cups that have the color outside, where you got a pretty blue, pink, and other. On the Stanley cup, a young lady did a tester, which you could buy at Home Depot. It's a stick. You pop it, you rub it on the surface, and it will let you know by it turning red that lead is in that surface. It's not a guarantee test, but it's a test to enlighten you to say, I want to do a little bit more detailed testing, right, to confirm that. But we got confirmation that the Stanley cups that are colored paint actually is lead poisoning on the outside. So how many people may have these cups? How many children are holding these cups and drinking with their parents or, just being a kid, right? I also found a pair of earrings at the store. When you look on, no one never look at the back of what earrings are attached to when we buy them. We take them off, we put them in our ear, right? But I happened to look at that back handling piece that the earrings are attached to, and it actually said the pair of earrings I was purchasing contained lead in it. So
Really?
yes. And so we do have other variety of things outside of our home, outside of our soil, outside of our plumbing system within our homes that could be possibility of a lead source. We have to be very cautious with what we're reading. It was really sad because around Halloween, they even talked about the chocolate candy.
Having lead?
Yes, high levels of lead.
But the question is, with all this lead, around, which it seems like it's almost unavoidable. I mean, whether you're in the house or step out of the house, it's unavoidable that you're going to be in contact with lead.
Well,
why isn't there more testing? Why isn't tested? Should be standardized whenever any take a blood test at least once a year.
We think that as parents, as community, but our regulators haven't thought that yet. And that's one thing why it's important. Our group, that is a family support group, we start with education because we know without education, you can not be powerful enough to advocate for yourself. You have to have the information for yourself to be able to do the best thing around your children. Plus also the research to find out where things is. Again, to be proactive for yourself, but then when we're proactive as the family and the parents, we can then make our physicians and our other resource space become more proactive by bringing this to their attention, even though they should be up to par, but we know that they are not always letting this be a subject matter that is in the forefront. But I think a lot of people thought it wasn't prevalent today, or we're just, screaming crazy that it's there, but lead poisoning is preventable. That's the key. We want to, no matter what's around, no matter where it is preventable to stop poisoning our children. So it comes down to policy change, a lot of advocacy, and a lot of support for the families, because after the age of 6, lead doesn't stop. Lead becomes a lifelong, complicated problem. And one thing, it doesn't affect everybody the same either. That's maybe a key, because they can't contain or come up with a one-fit-all structure for this, because it affects everyone differently.
Well, it seems like, for whatever reason, in my mind, I don't know whether it's true or not, that lead poisoning, that you read more, it happened with minority groups and poor socioeconomic groups. So I mean, this might be a certain prejudice against them, that the average person is, that's their problem. They should know more.
I would say you're correct. And that was one reason that drove me as an African-American woman, a mom, that I did not want to see another Black, brown individual contaminated with lead poisoning when it's preventable due to systemic and racism issues. That is what it boiled down to. One of the biggest things is the resource availability. When you capture the Black, brown communities, most of them are we're located in underserved, marginalized communities anyway. And so that's the first start. My city is a red line city, is a noted for redlining, right? And so that alone have us placed in a demographic that is already targeted to limit resources for various reasons, that limit us to be able to repair our homes, maintain our homes, keep them up. I'm even finding about generational wealth and property ownership, right? If you are not instilled with that knowledge about home ownership and what that means and what comes into that, we have generational homes being transferred to other generations. And if those generations have not been taught about how to maintain a home and things of that, it falls into a lot of just marginalized systemic issues, which shouldn't be today, but we see today we're dealing with that problem. I'm glad that people are talking about the issue of racism and isms, because it's really isms that is causing our problem. And it shouldn't be. Lead is preventable. No child should be poisoned. My child shouldn't have been poisoned in 1999.
No people should be poisoned, of course.
Nobody. And it's so effective when you get into our incarceration rate. Lead poisoning has something to do with that. When you do a comparison or a generational imprisonment, is those same families generationally poisoned? Are they coming from that space? But we know through testing of repeated offenders from the incarcerated space, they tested to have had lead, and we're finding repeated offenders are known to be lead poisoned individuals.
That is amazing, because I think, as far as I consider myself fairly well educated, and I read papers and listen to news, and I'm unaware of this. I'm unaware that, I know there's lead poisoning, but I always thought it, would come out in a certain illness or sickness, versus what you have been telling us. It's so out there. It could be anything. Taps into lead poisoning.
How
And
about
this
our
manifestation is huge? Yeah.
How about our cardiovascular disease? It's
Well,
a
it
symptom.
seems
It's
everything in
related to lead poisoning. I have an article, I could send you guys the link, that they just came out with a number of citizens around the world that's poisoned, and how many was affected in 2019 or 20 with CVD, which is the cardiovascular disease
Vascular, yeah, disease.
from lead poisoning. And for me, I've been claiming these spaces because I've been connecting, watching out for my child's well-being and you know, ensuring that her organs are detoxed and doing everything I could do to prevent her from becoming exposed to these symptom spaces.
Mm.
And that's why it's important to know about lead, because again, what can the parent do for their children with the knowledge opposed to resources maybe not getting that to us so we'll know what to do, right? So I've been studying these spaces quite a bit because I was worried about my child's well-being. I'm not going to say I was worried. I'm still worried every day of her life that lead can affect her in some kind of
Yeah,
way.
I
And it's a lifelong possibility.
yeah,
And
from what you're talking about, all of us should be.
yes,
Because
we all
you-
should.
Because I don't know when I'm drinking, some water or touching dust, I live in the world,
Yes.
and
And
I
so
don't think I've ever been tested.
a lot of people haven't, and
Is it, Robin,
I'm sorry.
is it, Robin, is it more a problem in some parts of the country than others? I understand it can be in older cities. Maybe cities out west weren't developed as early, or what would you say?
I would say if everyone really did testing of their children around the world, they'll find out that it's there. I think because
Oh,
a lot of people feel they're not aware of it being an issue or it's not prevalent, is because it just haven't been exercised around the space. So are they doing testing of all the children to find out if there's a problem? Every place is
so
different, but
yeah, but
it's
you've been
probably,
working in the Cleveland area for a long
yes.
You've been working in the Cleveland area for a long time on this particular problem, and I know you've made some great strides over the past few years. And I remember when I met you years ago, and it wasn't like you were just starting, but you weren't like you are now. I mean, you really made some real headway, but
Yes.
still, it isn't where you want it to be. And
Nope.
so city of Cleveland is the city that we're talking about. Where are you at right now in Cleveland with administrative support or legislative support?
We are doing great in reference to the attention of Cleveland. I have to say in 2019 is the year that more people invested through the Let's Safe Coalition. We have over 500 people that is part of that coalition. That is the first massive number, I could say, that has brought in all spectrums of folks to work around this issue and bring their minds together to make a collective build. Under that coalition, we started our lead safe certification program, which is for rental houses, and they have to be inspected and fixed while renters are there. So that's the first step. But then from there, it is advancing to our building and housing department to do the code enforcement. And we were having some struggles where everybody wasn't abiding by the law. And so they're now starting the Resident First campaign, and they're looking to really
Okay.
streamline around the building and housing violation and code violation. The first, I could say, really been focused hard in the city. So that's an exciting step that we're going to be able to rectify our housing stock.
Good.
Our whole
Excuse me,
thing,
Robin, before we run out of time, We'll continue in a minute. But is there a website or something that people who are interested could find out information or contact you or contact your group?
Yes. Our phone number is 216-220-6925. Our email is projectinfo216@gmail.com. And then we have a Facebook page, which I'm going to have to look up that information, as well as we got a website. I could send it over to you guys.
Yeah, send it over and we'll see if we could have it published as a part of Malcolm and We.
Okay, and then I can also, I mean, I could do it now, but I could also send a voice recording of it if you guys need it. But give me a second. I can look it up right now.
Well, you're definitely going to be on for another show, so.
And give you a link. Yeah, this is just the tips of it, but just entering into this before we leave, I would say no matter where you live at around the world, please ask your physician to give your child a lead screening test. And that will be the start of, clarifying your conscience of, no, my child isn't, or yes, my child is, and then finding out what to do. The main thing is don't think you're by yourself. We are out here in other places around the world, have organizational groups that could help the families, because it is a scary place to find out that you did everything you could do as a parent to bring a healthy child in the world. And then the environment is what kind of do something to take them out and alter their lives.
They don't even really have to be children. I mean, again, I have a 28 and 20, not going to be 29-year-old son. I mean, they are also a possibility of doing it now. Getting
yes,
poisoning.
If they're working in that environment, it really doesn't affect adults as bad as it does with children, because we push it out of ourselves.
Right, but it's manifesting itself in so many different ways that you can't tell.
That chocolate bar, they said the rate in the chocolate bar was so high, it can cause damage and put high numbers in an adult. So
and I'm wondering whether it's more also dangerous for senior citizens, as I'm getting to that senior area.
I would say dental loss, when you go into diabetes, maybe kidney issues. One question I have not did research yet with, because lead poisoning do affect the brain. It is a cognitive disorder, and I even question about dementia and Alzheimer's.
Right, because that's now becoming a almost epidemic with people
and
over
it's coming
age.
at earlier ages. It's like 30-year-old.
Anyway, Robin, I'd love to continue this, but we've run out of time. Again, we'll have to, in a few months, have you back again, talk about any legislation or something that the public could support.
Yes, because we are changing.
Because it seems to be a topic that's really not discussed that much.
No, and it should be.
Right, an issue, and it seems to be a very important health issue. Anyway, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you're listening to Malcolm and We, heard on, well, no, you're listening to Malcolm and We, heard on malcolmpresents.com. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for the invite. Take care. Bye-bye.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.